Good afternoon and welcome to the May 25th, 2022 meeting of the Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority for Harrisburg. We are all present, waiting for Marita, who I know will be here, and we look forward to a lively meeting. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes, which I hope everyone has had a chance to read. They are for the monthly meeting of the ICA on April 27th, 2022. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second from Ralph. Any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Motion carries. Our agenda is packed, as you've seen, and thank you to everyone who's participating this afternoon. The authority emphasizes three themes to help advance the financial stability of the city, and we have printed them as our priorities. We reiterate them in our Section 203 report and oftentimes in correspondence as well. And they are the sound financial management and reporting, community and economic development, and operational excellence. I repeat these because it does address why we are excited to have our first guest with us today. While the city does not currently have a community and economic development plan, the new administration has communicated its intent to develop a comprehensive plan in partnership with community stakeholders. Denise Hill currently wears two hats. She is the director of the Department of Building and Housing Development, and she is the director of the Department of Community and Economic Development. And we'll see if she has been able to condense that into a shorter time. We appreciate you being with us today and look forward to your assessment and your plans for this important role in the vibrancy and in the financial growth and stability of the city. And we have two seats up here if you'd like to come up. You'll just take, I didn't know if your colleague was going to come up as well.
I told him I was going to have him present, hand off to him.
Oh, and I will say that if you think I'm straining my voice, I am a little bit because Jeffrey has told me we need to emote in order for Owl to hear us. So Denise, Owl is listening.
Awesome, awesome. I am Denise Hill. I currently serve as the Director of Housing and Economic Development. So I did combine the two and kind of created a joint title for myself. But it is two separate hats, two separate departments. So under the Building and Housing Development, I oversee the CDBG, ESG, and home funding. We are 100% HUD funded.
Sorry.
That's
sorry.
okay. That's all right.
That was not very subtle, very rude. I apologize.
We are 100% HUD funded, so that's federal funding that comes into the housing department. On the economic development side, it's myself as well as a business development director, Jason Graves, and we will be the ones that will be moving this economic development plan through the process, along with the mayor, the administration, and council. Some of those plans are events to engage businesses. We are working on business attraction and retention within the city. And one of the events that has been proposed and will be kicking off is Around the World in a Day. So the idea is there are so many authentic restaurants within the city that highlight the cultures that are represented here in the city, and we want to highlight that. So residents will be able to download a passport of sorts and go to the different businesses and get a stamp. If you get a stamp, you have visited that country or culture, and then they will be able to submit their passport in for some type of prize. It could be a day with the commissioner, time with the mayor, come in and do a tour, things along those lines. We are also getting gift cards from different restaurants and businesses. So businesses in the city will be able to determine if we do this, let's say in the month of August, they can compare July to August what their foot traffic is. We are also encouraging them to have samples available. So if I live uptown and I don't have any reason to go to the Hill, just this event will take me there. And then if I am on the fence about a certain food, I can try it. And now as that business, you may have a new customer that you didn't have just because you participated in this event. We're also working on a series of workshops for businesses so that they will be able to increase their capacity, and we can hear directly from businesses about what they need, what they want, what they have, what keeps them in Harrisburg. So there are so many things that when we're in the trenches that we don't always see or we take for granted, and we want to hear directly from them. And then how can we offset that with resources and knowledge? So it will be a whole series depending on wherever a particular business or business owner is. They will be able to come into the series and participate in that. We are also looking at, this is kind of on the housing and economic development side, because it is very important to stabilize neighborhoods. So we want to have both a thriving economic department, but as well as good housing stock. So that's where these two roles really gel together nicely. So I am PREP certified, or Prepared Renters Education Program. So I'm looking to be able to offer those courses to residents in the city of Harrisburg. On the housing side, we ran the CARES Act funding, where during the moratorium, we were able to assist with $1 million in rent, mortgage, and utility assistance to make sure that people stayed stably housed if they were negatively impacted by COVID. On the economic development side of that, we also did a second round after Impact Harrisburg. We did another $500,000 of our small business program, where we were able to give out $10,000 microloans directly to businesses to cover lost wages, any revenue, pay the rent, to be able to pay salaries, and everything out of my office on the housing side is low to moderate income. So based on the economic status of the city, about 65% of individuals that live in the city technically fall either at or below the poverty line. So you can go anywhere in the city and you are able to positively impact in any of the neighborhoods that are represented here. So also on the housing side, I talked about CARES Act funding, small business loans. Another initiative that we are working on is LERTA, or the Local Economic Revitalization Tax Abatement Program. So that is for developers to come in, and they would be able to get up to 11 years. They would grade into paying full taxes. This is for new construction and significant rehabilitation in opportunity zones. So it provides an incentive to developers to come in and build affordable housing within the city so that we will be able to assist. The housing staff, we're not getting any more land in Harrisburg, and the housing staff continues to get older. So paired with other programs that I already have in my housing department, we are looking to be able to provide safe and affordable housing. I say in almost every meeting and every presentation that I give, everyone deserves a safe and affordable place to live. And legislation that council has presented and policies that we are continuing to work on are ensuring that. Are there any questions?
Just wondering who do you see as your immediate resources? Are you like working with CREDIC to, because I know they're
Absolutely
certified as far as developing plans, and
yes,
and I think that they could be of immense help to make sure that all the components of certainly what I think is important in an economic plan, which I agree with everything that you've said, but then there's also the importance of attracting new businesses and keeping our larger companies in the city and making sure that when people come, they want to come back.
Correct.
I think I drove down 2nd Street downtown, and I was just so dismayed with the number of empty storefronts or the lack of judgment perhaps in how buildings are being covered. So, you know, all of that to me would be useful in an economic development plan.
Absolutely. And understanding that reaching out to subject matter experts in the field there are established resources in the area. So because I have 2 roles and so many things going on out of those 2 roles, it does not make sense to reinvent the wheel. So connecting with CREDIC, I do participate. I'm on the board as a member of Harrisburg City employee staff, and then also the SBA. Right now, I am participating with Members First at Harrisburg University in their small business bowl. I'm actually one of the presenters tomorrow. That's a 6-week course for businesses that they'll be able to pitch, and there is like a $5,000, $2,000, or $1,000 for the top 3 at the end of the 6-week course. But like you said, also engaging and maintaining rapport with established businesses as well, because they are both equally important. So a big part of it is just highlighting, again, what is here, what brings people here, what keeps people here, and then making sure that we fully capitalize on that.
Are you doing any tracking of the grants that were given to small businesses?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
what are you finding?
So what we found, we actually partnered with CREDIC to do that piece of it. 49 businesses were assisted with up to $10,000. We made sure that all parts of the city were represented, so it wasn't just focused in one area. And one of the things that I was surprised to find, but found an opportunity, if you will, is almost some case management that went along with the businesses. So a lot of times people are sewing the parachute after they've already jumped. So this program actually gave us an opportunity to work directly with those companies because they were already in business. They had to be in business for 3 years prior to the pandemic. But tracking and seeing what they did not know and how they were able to maintain during a time frame without the resources, they just had a good product or they had a good service and they were making it work. So that was an opportunity for us to be able to link them with information that they didn't already have, which more than that $10,000, it was able to increase their capacity as far as knowledge and resources.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Denise, I wanted to offer a suggestion to you, and it's kind of a 2-pronged suggestion.
Sure.
In speaking to some of my colleagues in real estate and also some personal experience, I think that there's probably a really good opportunity in Harrisburg regarding housing development and both keeping people who live in the city here from moving out and also attracting new residents. And in talking with a lot of my colleagues, I get the sense that the biggest constraint right now is actually on the supply side. So something for you to think about regarding economic and community development would entail, whether it's policies or programs that are supporting the supply side of housing to ensure that people actually who would consider or would like to live in the city can find a place. I've spoken with colleagues who have like 100% occupancy and they turn away prospective residents, and that would be, if the city is like a business or an organization, that's kind of like turning away potential customers, right? And a related suggestion for you involving, as you're looking at the LRTA, something that I think we heard reported over the last couple of years was that the LRTA that's currently in existence is really probably not a good program because it doesn't seem to have the results where they're needed.
Yes.
And if I recall, the last we heard, and unless this has changed, there had been 0 instances of new construction that utilized the LRTA the way it was designed. And I think something you could do to avoid that happening, designing a program and then having nobody use it, which doesn't achieve any objectives to help the community. I think something you could potentially do is talk to a firm like RPRG. I know the city used, under the old LERTA from whatever, 20 years ago, I think at that time they actually used them or a firm like them. And they were really effective. And I think they were almost prophetic when they would say that, based on like sensitivity analysis of how you tweak a LERTA program, here's the results that you're going to get for that. By you retaining a firm like that, you would then be able to say, well, if we want to incentivize affordable housing, what is the cost as far as the opportunity cost of foregone tax revenue, and how many affordable housing units do we get for it, and what is the range of affordable housing? So I think you could potentially get, with a little bit of study and a little bit of assistance from a research firm like that, I think you could potentially design a program that would achieve potentially really big results.
And you said RPRG.
I know that firm, they do a good job, and I'm not sure I personally couldn't tell you. Some folks here who work in municipal government may know of other firms like that, but I know that they operate locally and they've done work in Harrisburg.
Fantastic.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, hope it helps.
Thank you.
Kim.
Thank you. Hi,
Hi.
I'm sorry, I'm Kim Gracie, DCED. To follow what Mr. Martin was saying, there's a lot of municipalities that use LERTA and use it well as well.
Yes.
As you all up with,
Yeah.
and they probably help.
Yeah.
Is your position a cabinet position? Do you report directly to the mayor?
I report to the business administrator, Dan
Okay.
Hartman.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you know if it's the city's plan to have this position, you wearing two hats? Is that part of their plan, or is this a temporary
So
arrangement?
currently, that is the plan, based on, this was the structure several years ago. And then it was split, and then it was brought back currently. So I am fully committed and willing to keep it that way. However, if council and the mayor would choose to split it up to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. There are a lot of, I'm sure you know, regulations on the HUD side, so making sure whatever is in the best interest of the city. So I'm fully committed either way.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
You as well.
I guess we'll take questions from the audience. Yes, Sheila.
Is that appropriate?
Sheila, just introduce yourself.
Yeah, if you introduce yourself.
I will, surely. Sheila Dow Ford, I'm the Executive Director of Impact Harrisburg, and the next presenter, but since we have Ms. Denise Hill here, I thought that I would ask the question that I'd like to ask as is appropriate, given the organization I represent. And that is regarding the relationship between Impact Harrisburg and the city of Harrisburg going forward. I think that there is a fair amount of uncertainty. And perhaps you can help to fill the gaps in terms of where, and maybe Ms. Kelly as well, in terms of how the administration perceives that relationship going forward. I'm sure that the members of this body and city council, certainly my board, and the public would like to know, given the opportunities over the past several years, I would say, that Impact Harrisburg has used to engage around local economic development, most particularly on the small business. Thank you.
Absolutely. And just to that point, I think that goes back to the comment that I was making about making sure that I am maintaining and building relationships that have a fissure from the past or have never been cultivated. But again, if there are organizations in the city, such as Impact Harrisburg and others that are doing the great work, I don't need, the administration does not need, council does not need to come in and reinvent that wheel. It makes sense for all of us to work together because we are working together for a common goal. So like Ms. Dow Ford has stated, it just makes sense to make sure that relationships such as that are in good standing. Because, as I previously stated, they did the first round of the small business loan program. So just making sure that all of that is maintained and building that rapport is very important to me personally.
If I may, I have a sense of deja vu on all of this, and I'm going to throw Anna Marie under the bus so she knows what's coming. I joined the law firm I'm with roughly 19 years ago. And one of the things that actually was happening before I joined this law firm, Anna Marie had set up a program called Venture Training, which was tied in with the State Employment Assistance Program, the SIA program. And we developed some very, very comprehensive materials. And I did 3 to 6 hours, depending on the tolerance of the class, on labor and employment topics. Anna Marie and some of the other colleagues did business formation topics, and we did a number of others. I know some of those businesses are still in existence because I have occasion to deal with them now as clients. So again, there are lots of good things out there, and I would suggest that you take a look at those. I know I, for one, would be willing to donate some time to make a presentation on labor and employment topics. I do it for management for some of these businesses, because frankly, these businesses generally don't have a clue when they're starting up about the regulations, the compliance necessities that are out there. And that was something that I thought Anna Marie did a very good job on. There were at one time videos. Heaven knows what format they were in. I don't know. They're gone. They're gone. Yeah. Because they were videos. They were probably on film strip.
Yeah, it was a while back.
Yeah. But some of that sort of stuff, if you can obtain any of that appropriately, through the appropriate channels that aren't copyright prohibited and such, or even go back to some of the people that worked in those programs, again, it would stop you from reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
Just as a point of information, so you know, that was all funded by the Department of Labor and Industry, which is an oddball. Under, yeah, it was the Job Training Partner. Well, it was the Job Training Partnership Act. It became something else. But it was, and so the people who participated in this stuff were all unemployed people who were starting businesses, which would normally disqualify them from collecting unemployment. But if they participated in this program, they could continue to collect their unemployment and start a business up. They didn't have to be ready and available for work, which is the buzz phrase of L&I. But that program theoretically still exists, so I don't know how much funding L&I is throwing out, if any, for that kind of thing. So, you know.
Two things, just to pick up on that, there's a Department of Labor out of the U.S. Department of Labor out of Philadelphia, which covers the eastern side of the state, including Harrisburg, does have job training grants that they give to municipalities to start job training programs. And they work as a partner with labor and industry on those federal grant programs. So there is money out there if a city wants to invest in job training through the federal government, through the U.S. Department of Labor, through their Philadelphia office. The second thing I was going to offer, my name is Jeffrey Stone, I'm the authority manager. In another capacity, I did an economic development plan for a community. And I wanted to tell you about how that worked. There is an entity which you may or may not know about called the Pennsylvania Downtown Center. Really, it's very familiar.
So that it says in the middle of the city.
Right, the PA Downtown Center, yeah. And they were terrific. What they helped us do, and we ended up hiring a consulting firm to create the economic development plan. But what the PA Downtown Center was instrumental, and they're a nonprofit, and they do a lot of work with the Department of Community and Economic Development. They were able to help us, for example, create the RFP to hire the request for proposals document, to hire the consultant to do the economic development. And so that we didn't have to spend our time or our money doing that. That helped us out tremendously. So the PA Downtown Center has a wealth of resources for municipalities that are engaging in community and economic development. And they have a terrific staff, and I am sure they would love to get to know you and provide you with whatever materials or advice in the area of community and economic development, specifically, not just with the downtown, but also with residential neighborhoods near downtown and so on. And they are all fully nonprofit, and they live just to help municipalities such as Harrisburg out. So I would definitely recommend that you go to their website, the PA Downtown Center, and reach out to them. And I know Marita is extremely knowledgeable about the good work that they do for municipalities across the state.
Yeah, Denise, Julie Fitzpatrick, who's the executive director, she actually had done a economic plan for Delta in York, Delta Borough. I guess there's a small fee, it's not very expensive, but you know, they're excellent in helping municipalities link into, you know, major economic development efforts. I mean, I've always been an advocate of Harrisburg applying for Main Street, and I'd like to see that. I know in the past we've had Elm Street, so I don't think it's a far stretch. And of course, you and I could walk over to meet Julie at 3rd and Burbeck. So, and of course, our colleagues from DCD here, they're very familiar with their, in fact, one of our colleagues, Beverly Hutzel, actually managed that program for a long time, did an excellent job. And she's and she's a wealth of information, just a walking encyclopedia. So she's sitting right behind us. You might want to get her phone number. But yeah, so there's a lot of options, and I'd be happy to, since you're just a floor down,
That's right.
come down and we can go over. And in fact, the PDC is actually having their convention in June, right? Across the street at the Hilton this year. Harrisburg's the highlight of that. So I know the mayor's planning on speaking, and so another opportunity for you to meet Julie and her team, and of course Mandy Bull and some of the folks from DCED as well. So yeah, so that's another option for you. And their fees are very, very reasonable, even if you just wanted to use their fees initially, just to see if their services would be of great benefit to us from an economic development standpoint for the city.
Thank you.
So you can tell there's a wealth of information around the
Yes.
table, lots of people
Yes.
willing to help. And I would just say, there is a sense of urgency because we haven't had a plan in so long. And the only way, I think we all agree, we see our way out of the situation that we're in right now is to raise revenues, especially on the tax basis, whether it's housing, but as importantly, creating more jobs in the city that provide livable wages. So we stand ready to help. We were going to have an economic development forum 3 years ago before the prior administration told us perhaps not to. But I think my colleagues and I would certainly be willing to mount whatever efforts we could to bring together you, to bring together other people, you know, maybe Impact Harrisburg, get people in a room and really get the energy going. Because, you know, everyone wants to solve the problem. So we'll put them in a room.
And I might add, Denise is just spectacular herself. I mean, to take on those responsibilities and just to such an outstanding job. I've just been very impressed with her. So I happened to catch her on channel 20 one night. I'm like, whoa, where does she have that all stored up in her head? She's something else.
Thank you.
Well, we really appreciate you coming in, and we look forward at some point to meeting. Is it Jason?
Yes, yes.
You all have so many J's over there.
And he's a dynamo too.
Yeah.
He's brought lots of
So next time, bring him, we'll meet him.
I'd
too.
love to.
All right.
I'd love to.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
And you have my contact information, so if there
Yeah.
is, you know, anything at all that I could be of assistance with, come back, anything. But I'll definitely be reaching out about some of the things given here today, and I appreciate your time.
Alrighty, thanks.
Thank you.
So next on our agenda is an update from Impact Harrisburg. And we last heard from Executive Director Sheila Dow Ford at our January 2020 board meeting. It doesn't seem like that long ago, but Jeffrey researched it and found out it was. Briefly, the mission of Impact Harrisburg is to promote economic development and infrastructure improvement within the city of Harrisburg. And you're right up there, yes, lady. And that aligns so well with the priorities of the ICA. I'll not say more, as their successes will speak for themselves. I'd like to note that Doug Hill is a board member of Impact Harrisburg, so I encourage him to chime in whenever he wants.
As do I.
Oh, okay. Well, you can just stare at him. And that'll make it tough.
Just like in a board meeting, right?
Yes, right. And so let me turn it over, the floor over to Sheila, and then we'll ask questions afterwards.
Very good. So this is a presentation, what I'm passing around right now, and I hope there are enough copies. If there aren't, I have a few extras. This is a presentation that was provided to our stakeholders on or about March 25th of this year. First, I'd like to thank all of you. I don't think I've met all of you. I've met some of you, and I've known some of you for a very long time, and others for less time. It's good to see you. I've seen you in various capacities as we move throughout our professional careers. Carla, it's good to see you. And I welcome this opportunity to provide an update. Please let me know if I am not being expressive enough, if I need to. Okay, I was a preschool and kindergarten teacher many, many years ago. So I do have a large inside voice if it's necessary.
You're doing good.
My son and husband would agree. So in any event, Impact Harrisburg has been in existence for some years, but we have been doing the real work that we were invested to do for the past 6 years. And what I have done is to provide for each of you this slide presentation. I'm going to talk in very, very abbreviated terms about where we are as an organization and the degree to which we have in fact been, in our view, and I think in the view of many others, many of our stakeholders and our grantees, really a positive benefit to the city of Harrisburg. So if you follow along with me, that's probably the best way to go through this, right? I promise not to belabor this. I would also encourage you at each step of the way to stop me and ask any questions, and Doug and I will endeavor to answer them. Yes, that's the way that works. So everybody knows that Doug is our vice chair and also is he's our treasurer. So I can assure you that our finances, we can start there. Our finances are in very good order. We have received clean audits for each of them. We are audited annually, and for each year we have clean audits, and we're very proud of that. And we'll talk about where the money has been spent as we move through. So if you just move through, you'll see the first slide talks about who we are. And then our what we call our 5 major program categories. And we're going to talk about each of those very briefly. Large economic development projects, infrastructure, neighborhood business stabilization program, 3rd round grant funding initiative, and the Disparity Study. Where did our money come from? We received $12.3 million. That was an allocation from the Commonwealth. That was a part of the STRONG plan. We were actually, for those of you who did not hear my first presentation, we were actually identified as an entity. Our existence was named in a general way in the Harrisburg STRONG plan. So our origins actually go back to that 2009, 2010 era when the city really was in deep fiscal crisis. And one of the challenges was for the oversight board, the authority at that time, was to identify ways in which they could increase some of what you're actually looking at today, increase the tax base, make it more inclusive, build community, address infrastructure, longstanding infrastructure needs, improve the housing stock. Very much reminiscent of what I heard you all talk about in the earlier presentation. This is an ongoing process. All of these challenges exist along that continuum. What we are talking about now is what we've been able to contribute with that $12.3 million to that process. Okay, just so that we've done some level setting around where we are. Good, okay. So we talked about our financials, we can move on. Our financials are in good shape. If Doug disagrees, I would ask him to disagree.
Resign.
Right. Maybe. Good, I think we're good. We do have internal controls. We thought that was important from the outset. So for each of our projects, we actually have a series of internal controls. Each and every project is required to have processes that are identified, that are spelled out, and that are memorialized. And we follow that because we have a number of grant programs, and that we found is the best way to measure what our expectations are against our results. So that's, we thought of that early on and we've done it. So let's take a deeper dive, if we may, into those projects. We're going to look at large economic development and community building. That's this page. I'll just hold it up so you can see. You can see that we have a total of 4 million, okay, 4.1 million, 4.125 that we actually expended in this area. And this is a listing of the projects, okay, that account for those dollars and the amounts we expended on each project. Parenthetically, we were with our state senator yesterday, and he saw the Salvation Army, and he indicated that he had made sure that they received 600,000 to our 500. So we just said we were lifting above our weight class, and we did fine. So, but it is good to know that these are projects. These are important projects. He was very invested in this. They run the gamut. These are projects that really do help the community. Goes back to those original mission, and vision goals. Tri-County Housing Development Corporation. You talked about housing, getting houses back on the tax rolls. We help to do that in a couple of different ways. Tri-County HDC has taken properties that were once off of the tax rolls and brought them back on the tax rolls, and we help them to do that. We've also worked with the Redevelopment Authority. We provided $500,000 for them. That's for the purpose of actually what I call raising building, or is the ING, raising buildings, actually taking them down, tear downs, and developing the sites, pulling the titles and doing all that kind of work, which takes money. And was in those kinds of resources that we have provided were absolutely necessary for this resource starved organization, the Redevelopment Authority. They did not have sufficient funds. We gave them the funds to engage in this kind of work. And the numbers are just they're quite positive. We have a number of homes that have been taken down, and you can see in the booklet that we have a representative sampling of that as well. If you have any questions, please ask me. I can go through these. I, of course, know each project by heart, so I have a little bit of information about each one.
And I think that the important piece is the multiplier effect that
Indeed.
each of these have, and especially, when I first saw it, I thought webpage FX, and I was like, why? But when you look at how they have grown here, and as long as we can keep them here, and I did hear they bought the Char Mansion, so they put more money in.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, so I think that was just a great investment, and they just continue to keep going.
Thank you, Audrey. Yes, can I just add to that? They have, the last I heard, about 125 employees. They're a large employer in this community now. They started out as students at one of the state system schools, and started developing web pages, and in the way that some of us have done, but others have done, and build it into this tremendous building, a business that really has an international reach, and they recruit a number of students. That is also parenthetically also affected the rental market in a positive way. That is the story you want to hear. Am I right? I mean, that is what you want to hear. So we gave them $500,000 and they were able to leverage that multiplier effect, that force multiplier effect is what we were seeking. And I think it's what we have been able to garner. Moving on. Infrastructure improvement projects, 5.487. I'd like to talk a little bit about this, but not from the standpoint of the dollars expended, but from the standpoint of the partnerships that were formed. This was incredibly important to us because it really was about engaging the city and Capital Region Water, the two primary beneficiaries of the infrastructure funding that we have. We had two pots of money, large economic development and infrastructure. And our directive was to engage the city and CRW around infrastructure unmet needs. And so the multimodal project is, as you all know, is not only a multimodal project, it's also a multi-year project. So we needed to find a way to really engage two entities that candidly were not talking to one another all that much at the start of the project. That's a fair statement. And so what we decided to do, because cooperation in any community that's a critical factor. There are a couple of critical factors, and good cooperation between and amongst entities is one of those. So what we decided to do, when I say we, I'm talking about my board and the staff, we decided that what we would do is to require that the entities work together on these projects. And so I think overall it's been quite successful. That was a way for us to actually facilitate bringing them literally and figuratively to the table. That's what we need more of. That's been a hallmark, it is fair to say, of the work that we have engaged in at Impact Harrisburg. Those kinds of community partnerships are critical. Questions? Then there's the software purchase. You know, that's Marita looks up. That's an ongoing process with the city. We provided $250,000 out of a contingency grant for an emergent software purchase that really helped the city to sort of move forward. They're now engaged in a bigger, as you all know, project around the CRM system. And we're pleased that we were able to kind of help to bridge that gap. Moving on, the Neighborhood Business Stabilization Program. This was a program that my colleague alluded to earlier. This program was a first in its class for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's a program we're very proud of at Impact Harrisburg. We're proud because we put together essentially in 1 month's time, at the start of the pandemic, a program that would get $5,000, which might seem like a little, these were small businesses, but we got that into the hands of, I think it was 314 small businesses. And we did that within 2 months. We put the program together in 1 month. We put together a process and an analytical one, you know, because you have to engage in your due diligence. And then May 13th and 14th or thereabout of the year 2020, I stood and gave 314 checks to small businesses. That has had a tremendous impact that goes beyond symbolism. Those of you who were at our stakeholder meeting will recall the moment when a very successful small business owner in this community started to cry when she talked about having received that small but meaningful $5,000 check. She said, we are doing so well now, but in May of 2020, we didn't know how we were going to keep our doors open. That was a check that was given to, once again, those 314 small businesses to keep the lights on, to do the things that they might need to maybe meet payroll, to a barbershop that hadn't been open. And it was just, once again, a bridge to get through. We are very proud of that. This is also something we're equally proud of. 7% of the awardees were minority and women-owned businesses. This is going to tie in with the opportunity to really build a more diverse business community within the city of Harrisburg. And as we conclude this, what you'll hear me talk about is the Disparity Study, which was our initiative, and we asked the city to partner with us. And after that, the county said, we'd like to partner with you as well. But we had to step out. That's what happens when you act as a leader in your community. That's what we did. Once again, another factor, 25% of all the licensed businesses in the city of Harrisburg received a grant. Impact Harrisburg put in 1 million plus, and the city put in 500,000 for that project. We went to them and we said, will you help us? That's, once again, the partnership quotient in this. Moving on, any questions? I promised you I wouldn't take 6 years for this. It took 6 years for the programs. But these are nice programs. Third round grant funding. So we just think about this. We had done all of those programs, and then we get to the year 2021. The pandemic is abating somewhat, and we had a small balance that we could use for another project we thought. Under $500,000 is what we're talking about. And so the question was, what do we do? I'm going to tell you this. Some organizations might have said we're done, but we did. And what we said is that we're done. He said, he said, let's do another program. And we did. We did the third round grant funding. We found a way to do it. It's an initiative that's smaller than the rest of our programs, but it is, once again, just as effective and just as meaningful for us. It was established in the third quarter of 2021. We chose 41 grantees from over 100 applicants. Let me say this also, when we talk about the large number of applicants, we are a known quantity here now. We are a trusted advisor to the small business community in every neighborhood in our city. When you look through the pamphlet that I passed around, you'll see a scattergram at the back that talks about our impact in every neighborhood. It shows you, it's a representation of our impact in every neighborhood in the city. I sound like I'm boasting, I'm not. I'm telling you what is in fact the case. And we need to be proud of that. There needs to be more pride, one of ownership and opportunity when we do things that are good. So total program allocation was $359,000, and we are still in the process of administering the third round grant funding program. So that's where we are with that. Then we get to our disparity study. Are you all exhausted yet? I'm not, I like this. I mean, good, but it's a lot, right? So this is what we've done. You gave us $12.3 million, and this is how we decided to use that, all right? This is the accountability piece. We need to tell you how we use the dollars that were allotted to us. I talked to you a few minutes ago about the fact that even with respect to, I should say, the strong plan, there was a real recognition that we are a city that is so diverse, but that diversity is not reflected as well as it should be in the business sector. So the question was, how do we do that? And we kept circling around that question as we built each grant program and provided the kind of business kind of education that and mentorship that we have provided to many of our small businesses, because that's a soft but necessary component of all of this, because we want them to succeed. And we've been doing that consistently throughout. So the question was, how do we in fact figure out how to measure the level of or the delta, if you will, between opportunity and where we are currently, and how or any number of factors around diversity. And so what we said is, let's do a disparity study. We did some research. The board directed me to engage in some research around disparity studies. We looked at what other communities have done. There is nothing about this that is new or particularly new, except that it's in Harrisburg. And so we said $250,000 is what we'll allocate. Once again, go back to the partnership quotient. What we said is, we want the city to be a partner with this. We do this on behalf of the city. We do this because we want to better the city. That's our goal. That's our mission. That's our vision. We asked the city to come in, Cappies. They came in for 50% initially, so we divided it 125 and 125. The county decided that it too wanted to be a partner in this initiative. That's what we needed. They came in, so we divided the cost 3 ways. And so even today, at this very moment, we are in the process of unrolling that project. We have a consultant we have engaged, eConsult Solutions. Marita is a part of that initiative, is working with, from the city's standpoint, working with Impact Harrisburg and the county and eConsult Solutions. And it is, in a few days, we'll roll out, a day or so, we'll roll out the survey and start gathering the data. And we expect to have this done within 6 months. That's what we've been doing. So the question becomes, if we move to the next page. Thank you. Where do we go from here? I love that question. It's always a question. Sometimes I wake up and ask myself that, which is a little neurotic, but it's okay. Thank you. So we have to make some decisions. We talked about the idea, the notion that we were not going to let any dollars remain sitting idly in our coffers. That's not what we're supposed to do. It's not what our charge was. So we have decided that we will seek funders, because we think that the goal that we have, the mission that we serve, is incredibly important to the well-being of the city of Harrisburg. I know we have been a good partner. We have done the work that other community foundations do in other cities. When you look out and around you, go to York, PA, where Mayor is sitting right behind me, and so she can correct me if I'm speaking out of turn. But there is at least 1 and perhaps 3 or 4 foundations there that engage in the same sort of work that Impact Harrisburg is engaging in as a solo entity in the city of Harrisburg. I can tell you right now that it would be a sad day if we were to close our doors. At this point in time, what we would do is to go into dormancy in June, and June is right around the corner. If we do not have additional funding, we are doing the work to obtain additional funding. We would like to partner with the city to continue to do that, to act as a complementary adjunct to the work in which they're engaged. Someone did a quantitative analysis and qualitative analysis of the expertise of the staff and board, and realized that we have over 150 years experience. I'm not sure what that means. But I know, but it is a lot, and it runs the gamut. It's legal, it's financial, it is government experience, it's leadership. Those are the qualities we need in the city. I have lived here for a very long time. I know, as I said, I know many of you, you know me. And so we know that this is work that needs to be done. We are hopeful that you can serve as a supportive partner. Don't ask you for funding, that's not your role.
Hey,
But you need
you
to.
always ask for funding.
Oh, because you can't do that. I'm sorry, she's a fundraiser. I just said the words, fundraisers never say that, right? They never say that. I didn't say that. Let's correct the tape. Let's go back, okay? Erase that portion of the tape. But I would like for you to serve in your advocacy role, because I think that we are a critical link to the well-being of the city of Harrisburg. There was an article that I'm sure that most of you saw that was a Penn Live editorial that came out a few weeks ago. And if you haven't seen it, it was published May 1st. And it was an incredible testament to the work that we've done. And no, we didn't pay anyone to write that. They wrote it of their own accord. As they said, look at the data, look at the results. We are a results-oriented organization. that has a mission and a vision that we intend to, with the resources that we intend to continue to fulfill. And with that, I want to answer any questions that you might have. I appreciate your patience.
Any questions? No questions. You've done an
Oh, my
exhaustive
goodness, I'm
summary.
sorry.
No, that's good. And you and I have gotten to know each other, and I know
Indeed.
certainly I'm willing to help you in a personal capacity any way I can. And I've always said, I mean, you got to just step into the name, because you can't have a better name than Impact Harrisburg.
Once you
Thank
get, yeah, the name sort of, it compels you or impels you to
To
do
do
work,
something.
doesn't it, to impact, right? Doug, would you like to add?
Well, just a couple of small points, I suppose. First, thank you, Sheila, as a thorough presentation. But I think the couple of things I'll emphasize are the diversity of approaches that we've taken. So the first round were larger grants. They were larger community-based organizations. The second round was just to fill that very brief and quick niche, the smallest businesses that needed the most help right away. And then on the third round, what we looked for were the businesses that are established, but are small enough that they don't quite have skills, knowledge, expertise, administrative capacity, or qualifications to go after state grants, to go after some of the other things. And so here's this smaller group that we can help address, because they are such an important part of the fabric of the community. I think if you look through other parts of the report, you'll find too the diversity of projects, and that's both economic as well as demographic, but also geographic.
Right.
We literally touched every neighborhood of the city, and that was also an important part of our objectives. So we do think we have the capacity to serve going forward to help augment staffing and capacity issues on behalf of the city to administer either ARPA funds or CDBG funds, or if the state has funding available through RAC or some of the other programs, that we have the capacity to do that and have a meaningful result on the city's behalf.
I agree. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sheila. Appreciate
My
it.
pleasure. Thank you for being so patient.
Thank you. And so next on our agenda, as promised, Marita, every meeting we will have some time allocated to you to present a little bit or a lot of it. So I'll turn the floor over to you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm extremely excited to announce we have a new budget manager who I'd like to introduce. Do you want to come up, Tim? Mr. Brooks is a city resident, went to Harrisburg High, went to Bloomsburg University, degree in accounting, and he has really done an outstanding job so far. He's been with us for coming up on 2 months, I guess, already. And he's worked for several state agencies, has excellent accounting experience as well, which is a big plus. This is with our accounting manager, who's really overwhelmed just because there's, so much to do. So Tim, do you want to, other than what I've already said, do you want to tell them about your experience for the last 2 months? And
Okay.
last,
As Marita's understudy, got to learn a lot about the city and how it runs. My experience at the Commonwealth has been valuable in getting this position, and going to be would help me as well. I worked in the Commonwealth for about 10 years in the Office of Budget, Comptroller's Office, where I've worked my way from the regular processor all the way up through management. So I've experienced there in terms of the budgeting side, management side, and the resources side from a government agency as well. Prior to that, I was working in other opportunities, associations, Pennsylvania Dental Association, helping doing well as the county manager there. Did audits, just all around accounting background there. Then one of my other outside of accounting experiences that I'm proud of as well, being part of the Milton Hershey community. That's something that's so important to me. I was there for about 10 years as well. I wasn't in the financial realm of things there, but I was able to leave a lasting impact with the children, the staff there as a barber. So I was able to really kind of, introduce myself with that community and do some lasting impact there. So,
Tell them about Littleton.
oh my, I didn't know you guys wanted to go personal. I have a 7-year-old, and I have a 16-year-old at this point now. Wow. 7-year-old, oh man, he's a little me, full of energy. Oh man. It keeps me up at night, every night.
Tell them where he goes to school.
Oh, yeah, actually, it's the STEAM Academy. Yeah, it's the PA STEAM Academy. I was fortunate enough to get him into this PA STEAM Academy, where he is excelling day by day. I appreciate what they do and what he's able to come home and show us all different types of STEM projects and things that he's doing every day. And how much the teachers really gloat about him and say how well he's doing. He's really a hands-on person, quite like myself. So I'm very happy, and I hope to, put him in this opportunity well.
I think I misunderstood you, but I was nodding anyway. I think you said a hands-on like you.
Yes.
Okay, and I understood handsome and I was like, oh, okay.
You can take handsome as well. I mean, I was thinking hands-on. I get in the weeds with that. Get my hands on things. But yeah, I mean, I'll take handsome as well.
Sorry. I've never learned how to do that. So thank you. Sorry if I embarrassed you.
Oh, no.
I may
no.
embarrass myself more. But we're glad to have you on board, and certainly budgeting is oh so important, and making sure Marita has help is one of our priorities, because we want her to stay and feel really good about Harrisburg. So, of course. Any other numbers or anything else?
Well, we have
Numbers look
an
good.
exciting presentation that the mayor will be delivering on June 7th to City Council on her ARPA recommendations. They were in the Penn Live last. In fact, I saw it when I was away on vacation. Somebody sent it to me. She's very interested in working with Denise, particularly with low to moderate housing. She and Denise have some fantastic ideas. She's interested in utility assistance for some of our trash in the rear accounts that would help the residents and would help us in terms of having some income come in that's been delayed maybe from COVID and some other things. She's looking at some parks and recreation, some spray parks. She's looking at a park for children with handicap, but not just a wheelchair bound handicap, any form of handicap a child might have. So she has that on the horizon. Several other items that are on the list, but she really has a terrific proposal. She did have four, I think, public meetings that she and the city council attended. We have a professional financial management consulting service, Northwest Financial out of New Jersey, who has helped to guide us through those. They weren't hearings, I'm sorry, wrong choice of words. They were meetings. When I saw the attorney, I'm like, okay. Yeah, so, but they were, I went to two of them. They were excellent, I thought. And we have tremendous feedback from ministers in the community, from small business owners in the community, from mothers, school children, everyone that wanted to speak could speak. And the mayor and city council sat up and listened. So a lot of those ideas that she put forth came from there. She didn't come up with them entirely on her own. She took a lot of public input. And we hope that, and we know, because there's been some briefing to city council, but not a formal one. And June 7th will be the formal briefing that she and the business administrator, Dan Hartman, will be presenting. And then, of course, we do have a small reallocation that Tim and Brian and myself have been working on, just to kind of right the ship a little bit. I can't really go into the details right now because it's preliminary, but there are things that'll kind of right the ship, but nothing of extraordinary measures, just to kind of make sure everything is accurate, complete, and closely aligned with any budgetary requirements from city council. And that's pretty much my report, unless you can think I missed anything.
No, I think we covered it all.
Okay.
Well, you segue beautifully into the next agenda item, which is a quick discussion by the board of what we have gotten from the mayor. And as I looked at the proposal, the allocations fall into 4 buckets with approximately 10% reserved for future allocations.
And admin.
And admin. And so you've got replacement of lost revenue, which is about 19%, public safety about 19%, beautification, parks, recreations about 21%, and helping those in need 31%. And there was some detail that we got in the 2-pager that Jeffrey brought to your attention a couple of times this past couple of weeks. So I hope you've had the chance to take a look at them. And when we were with the mayor, she had asked us if we could make sure that the board had a chance to take a look at it and perhaps give some feedback and support her initiatives if the board was so inclined. So I want to open the floor to discussion about what you saw, what you observed, what you think. Anyone? Kathy, thank you.
I'll kick it off. I really liked the idea of giving assistance to, I'll use the phrase, people in need to pay city utilities that hadn't been paid, because I thought that was a win-win for everybody. That's a win for the folks that are pressed by these economic conditions that they can't meet, and it also helps the city generally. And especially after Sheila's presentation this evening, the program that is designated as people in need, the blurb on that, didn't give us much information about what that program is and how it's going to be administered, or whether or not it could be administered through something like an Impact Harrisburg without putting a whole new infrastructure in place to administer it. So I'd be particularly interested in more information about that 31%. The Parks and Recreation, I think I understand the desire to have more things available. I have noticed some nice improvements on the park. I hope there's also money through the ARPA funds going to places like Capital Region Water, because I was personally hoping that a large portion of that, I think it was 32 million-ish that was coming to the city from ARPA. I was hoping a lot of that would go into infrastructure projects, because otherwise I think we're going to badly disadvantage folks who don't have much revenue coming in at the time we start increasing taxes for some of the infrastructure that's basically wearing it. And I don't think those folks can afford more tax increases on top of everything else. So that was my personal goal that I was hoping the monies would be used for, rightly or wrongly. But I thought it was a thoughtful discussion. I was just looking for more detail on the 31%, because it's amazing how fast 32 million can be allocated and kind of go off into the sunset.
And it's actually 47 million.
Is it 47 now?
So
Okay.
5 million, or just over 4 million, what it is for future allocation of 5 million. Other,
We haven't received the second tranche yet. We anticipate receiving that sometime by June, pretty soon.
Okay.
June 15th or so, but we have not received the second tranche. We do have the first tranche. It's in the bank. City Council had allocated 8.6 million of that number, right? For lost revenue. So which will largely be used to support, well, I don't know this for sure, so maybe I better be careful what I say, but to support city activities. I'll say it
And that
that way.
makes sense, but I looked at this as a year plus of free, Mr. Al can't see that probably, those are quote marks, free budget to us. You know, it's over a year of revenues. So I'd like to see it make some really significant impacts.
Understood. Well, public safety will be happy they're getting new HVAC because they're roasting alive over there right now. Because the air conditioning comes on once in a while and once in a while it doesn't. So we have the 5.5 million set aside for the HVAC for public safety.
And there were
That's pretty
payments to police and fire. My understanding is we're below market on most of those salaries. And I suspect the unions will not, I suspect the employees will not be upset if they get some extra on top of what they're expecting from the union contracts. But those people do a wonderful job.
Question. On the issue about the demolition of the abandoned houses, who owns those houses, and will the city be recouping any type of monies from the, whoever owns those houses?
I don't know for sure, maybe you know more than I know, Denise, but I was thinking that Harrisburg Redevelopment Authority owns them, and they mostly are buildings that are not inhabitable and probably have very little value to them, and are already owned by a quasi governmental entity of the city, the Harrisburg Redevelopment Authority and Brian Davis. So that's how those they aren't on the city tax rolls right now. They are not. But they are dilapidated, and the mayor she's a zealot when it comes to houses that are just ugly,
Well, I
anything
agree.
that's
I agree.
pulling down the beauty of the city. And so she it's a particular desire of hers, and the codes enforcement director, she's a zealot as well, trying to get those buildings torn down and beautify the community. And that's the goal there, I believe. Although I'm not an expert in housing. There's my expert over there.
And my other question was about the housing. They're talking about giving out grants, I guess, for 10,000 home repairs and things of that nature. Will the people that get awarded those positions, are they going to be vetted by somebody? I'm a longtime resident of the center, the inner part of the city, and people have gotten things done and they weren't completed or they weren't done correctly. So I guess my question is, are they going to vet people to do the construction or the moving the roofs or anything of that nature? Not just somebody's friend.
Denise, do you mind answering that?
See Denise, yeah.
So as proposed, it would run congruent to our current housing rehabilitation program, which is up to $15,000 in a forgivable loan, but it would run the same way. So it would be vetted as proposed through my office, same exact way, but the contractor would be paid directly, but they would have to go through an entire vetting process and checklist to make sure before the contract would be entered into, that we'd be able to pay out. So as far as taxes, their licenses, making sure that they are on the up and up, so that I can't pay my brother $10,000 to put up a coat of paint in my house, and then thus creating safety issues and just kind of mismanagement of this money.
Yeah, none of this has been approved either. It has to go before city council and be a concurrence with the mayor and city council. Just making you aware of that. That's why it's going before them on June 7th for consideration, but not for a vote, because I believe June 7th is a work session. So they wouldn't vote on June 7th.
Can I just follow up on that a little bit and a couple other points? So if I understand correctly, this goes before council. It's the council's approval just by program category and amount, or how far down into the details council going to get relative to program qualifications or administration?
Well, they of course would approve it from a legislative standpoint as part of an ordinance. But the administration, Denise and Mike Hughes and all the other Parks and Rec folks, Dave Baker and myself, in administrative capacity, would be helping to guide anything that, just like once they pass the budget, then it gets turns over back to me. And then I have to make sure that all the departments get their designated amounts. And that was before Tim started. And so their role largely is legislative, and the mayor's role is more implementation, as you know.
And that just,
And they could drill down if they want in the decision, just like in the budget, they're like, you know, if there's something they don't like in the budget, they're like, we want to add 3 motor equipment operators, which is exactly what they did. They added 3 additional motor equipment operators because they are more or less have the power of the purse. So if they want to add something that's of minor detail, they could, but then once that passes, then it gets implemented. So, but they can drill down, I suspect, you know, as much as they do through the budget or any other legislation that's put forth in front of them.
and I also had the opportunity to sit in on one of the public meetings. I thought they were very well done. Did see Denise there too. And a lot of the commenters at the one I was at were talking about housing in particular.
Huge issue.
And so I'm pleased to see how responsive the whole plan is to a lot of things that occurred. I did want to follow up on one comment that Kathy had relative to infrastructure and CRW, and this is switching to my Impact Harrisburg hat, because part of what we worked with CRW on related to some of the line replacements. And one of the things that we found was that as they go through neighborhoods, responsibility for running the lateral to the house falls to the property owner, and can, for many of the properties, depending on the character of the property, run into 4 or 5 figures. And so I know CRW has looked at programming to provide some assistance to those, particularly at the lower end of the income scale, to deal with those costs. And you know, that could be something as well that's taken into account here.
I thought Carla made a really interesting comment about how the demolition money is programmed. And I think that could be a potentially really valuable pool of funds for the city, depending on how it's administered. And if it's simply HRA properties that contain dilapidated buildings, I think that's fairly straightforward. But there's really complicated instances in the city where a derelict property might be simply abandoned, and by virtue of the way it's constructed, it's pulling down adjacent properties. And properties like that are not owned by the HRA, and there is no resource to help people, and it just decimates streets and blocks.
Yeah.
So depending on how that program is administered and the muscle behind it, it could potentially be a powerful tool for improvement in the city.
I know the codes enforcement is very much in tune with those issues. We have those issues come up periodically. And so I know that concept will not be lost by our codes enforcement officials who
There's
are
a
looking at those buildings that are.
there's a concept that I don't know if it's practiced locally. I've read about it being used elsewhere in the Northeast called clean and lean. And what this concept is that it's created legislatively, and it authorizes the city to delegate certain powers that it has. And an example of a clean and lean would be you could delegate the authority to like a neighborhood church, and you would tell them they can mow the grass on the vacant property, and the city can place the lien. And basically, like when the neighborhood church in this instance is fronting the bill, and then when the city collects the lien, it pays it to the third party. And you typically would restrict the third parties to certain organizations, not just anybody. But a tool like clean and lean could be potentially used as well to get more legs out of demo funds. And another thought that could potentially help with demo funds, which I have passed on to Dan Hartman, is talking to the incinerator folks at Laxwama, because it's a huge component of the demolition cost is actually the tipping fee. So if it's possible to get some partnership from Laxwama when it comes specifically with the city showing up with blight remediation, it could potentially, again, stretch out those demo funds to get more legs out of it. I took note, Kathy, of your comment about the trash, the idea to use it, the funding to assist folks who fell behind on trash bills during the pandemic.
And that's all neighborhood services.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, and my first reaction was similar to yours, but upon further thought, two things sort of for me give pause. And one is that the collections rate didn't significantly change. And the second thing is that, in a sense, it's a little bit unfair to folks who did what they had to do to make sure they paid all their utility bills, simply to have, if they hadn't paid it, then 2 years later, the city's coming and paying off the bills for folks who didn't necessarily pay their bills. And not paying your bill might not be directly correlated to need. So although I think that the mechanic of having the cash basically come back and make the city whole and help people who might need it is a great idea, I would urge that you take a really close look at how those funds are administered if you ultimately get that approved, to make sure they're not rewarding bad behavior from people who maybe could afford good behavior and just chose not to do it, or maybe weren't responsible. Because it does punish some of the responsible people who maybe can't, they probably have to forego a lot of comforts and luxuries to pay their daily bills. As everyone makes those choices, and that use might be perceived as potentially unfair to some people.
I think the treasurer and Brian McCutcheon, those two have been having a chat on who's on the list and how the list. So there's a cognizance of I better watch my use of terms, but there's a cognizant review of those individuals. The other concept is on some of the low to moderate income individuals, which are many are targeted if they're in that group. The belief is once they get caught up, because they're not used to being that far behind with COVID, they lost their job or whatever, then they'll be more likely to stay up. And we've seen that happen in other instances. So we're kind of hopeful, but there is some analysis being done on the list, and exactly how that's going to be vetted out, I'm not certain, but certainly we're aware of kind of habitual abusers and people that are just really down and out. We don't know that we can do an exact analysis of that, but we have some information, some statistical data that gives us some hope that this will be done equitably, fairly, and hopefully produce a good result for everyone. That's the
I
goal.
want to make one more comment, because the people that I represent, I work for a labor union, and therefore those people, they're basically sometimes working poor. And so they live from paycheck to paycheck. And so those people are saying, do I eat this week or do I pay this trash bill? And I think that goes back to what you're saying. Not those people that are, I'm going to drive this typical car because I want to I'm going to put in these particular $300 sneakers. So, I think it has to be looked at.
Yeah, and as I said, there is quite a bit of analysis. Go ahead.
If I can add, that was a real challenge with the CARES Act funding, so with the rent, mortgage, and utilities, and we really did have to take a good look at what the criteria was to be approved. And one thing that personally helped me and my team so much is we built a direct relationship with Capital Region Water specifically. And they would, within probably 30 to 45 minutes, I created a form that I would send and request a statement of accounts. And they would send it back starting January of 2020 forward, because that's what was approved as pandemic time. And then we matched that with the actual application for assistance. They had to show proof, and it was a catch-22, because we don't want to be a complete hindrance to people who actually need assistance, but it is important because no matter how much money I had to assist, the need was greater. So just making sure that we did our due diligence to make sure that the need really was connected to the pandemic or to COVID-19. So being able to show a loss in hours, a layoff letter, a positive test result, or an increase in 3 to 4 months of utility bills, because we could show that prior to the pandemic and schools being shut down, this was an average of the bill, but then it spiked because there was more use because they were in the home. So it will be very, very important. But I can definitely be the voice at the table during that process to just kind of talk about what we've seen already and what was helpful in that process.
Two ideas, if take them for what they're worth. One is that you could tweak the trash allocation to make it a credit, and it's based on income ability, regardless of whether they have a pass bill or not. And another potential suggestion is to make it a partial application, like a match. So if you are $500 behind, you got to come up with $250. You get more out of the program and you get more investment. And you don't have people owing 1,000, getting 500 from the city and leaving the balance just because they're taking what's free and not maybe having the ability to do more and not doing it, making the decision to do that. So again, I think we want to look at the delinquent, do the analysis on the delinquent accounts and find out where the pain point is. You can get the help where it's most needed, and not necessarily rewarding bad behavior. Where if that, again, I don't know that it's there, but if you want to do that due diligence. And then two more thoughts. I really think the affordable housing one is outstanding. I just know this from my world in real estate that folks who do affordable housing have a really tough time with it because there's a gap. And you could have like a project like, I don't know, like a $10 million project that needs $500,000 as a gap, and it doesn't exist. And there's a reason why it doesn't exist, because already the rents are low and they're fundraising for the rest of it. So in a sense, the city can get a lot of leverage with a relatively small amount of money for affordable. So I think cities never have, developers don't have it, and cities rarely come into funds that are available for matching funds. And there's a reason development of affordable housing stagnates. And people, again, who need safe, high quality, affordable housing don't get it because the supply can't be created. So long-winded version of saying, for my 2 cents, I think that's really a really strong way to get a lot of legs out of each dollar that's allocated that way. And following up also on another one of Carla's comments is regarding how you assist folks with home repairs. You might want to exclude kitchen renovations. You might want to prioritize, again, people either based on ownership or income status, and also things like furnaces, windows, roofing, things that affect structural integrity, and especially with winter coming. I know, and speaking with the mayor was telling us horror stories of folks without working furnaces in the city. So since the funds are limited, if you can prioritize based on where the need is the greatest, and maybe just certify that it's not being used to repaint the living room, I think go a long way.
So I do have the application created and ready for review should it go and be approved. And it is basic systems. So it's no cosmetics. It would be roof, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, things to bring the home up to code. Because as we were saying, people are making decisions. Do I eat? Do I keep the lights on? Or, do I fix the furnace? And sometimes a lot of times it's just not enough to go around. So it's to bring these up to code, because then it's safe for the entire community as well as each household as well. But then someone is not getting $10,000 worth of cosmetic work when that could go to someone else.
And I might read the news too much, but electric rates are about to jump how much? 50+%. And folks using space heaters because their furnaces are either inefficient or broken. So even with your form, Denise, you may look at the need, and you may find that whether someone likes it or not, there's going to be more benefit overall for the city if it's being used for a roof or a window or a furnace, rather than it's eligible, even if it's not the greatest need throughout the city. And take it for what it's worth, just some feedback from reactions from reading the proposals. And then the last overarching comment was just a big compliment to everybody in the administration, because something that's part of the ICA's mandate is to just advise the city when it comes to planning procedures. And I think it's important it's really important that the city's taking the time to do listening sessions, use consultants, build out an administration with competent people and also people who are not only competent, but really care about the city. And I think the procedures the city's undertaking to spend this once in a lifetime allocation shows the heart that goes into it. And hopefully it's perfect, but if it's not perfect, you're still doing, seems to me anyway, like you're going about it the right way. And pass along my personal compliments on that and keep it up.
I think you said the right word, heart. I don't think anybody has a bigger heart than our mayor. She's amazing.
Heart.
She really cares, and she loves the city, and she loves the people of the city. We're very, very fortunate to have such a terrific leader.
The only comment that I would add, I think all of these are great, and I think we really look at a lot of these areas as benefiting a huge number of people in the community. And the only thing that gave me pause was that under beautification, parks and recreation, that 80% of that category is benefiting one project that benefits one small part of the city. And it actually represents 17% of the entirety of the allocation we got. So my encouragement would be to see if there isn't a way to perhaps develop even more parks in more areas.
Well, I
Because
think the dilemma, excuse me for interrupting, the dilemma is likely to lose both of our pools. One is non-opening now, and the other one is likely not to open next year. And so we were thinking the spray parks would be the alternative to the loss of the pools. I think that's some of the logic, if you will. I can't speak for it all, but
And I just encourage us to look at whether or not the resources that are expended in the maintenance of the pools, and we're now saying we can't even hire lifeguards. But anyway, so that was the one, my comment. Any other comments?
so I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt you.
no, that's all right.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Kathy's concern about the infrastructure. Just remember that in addition to the ARPA funds, there is significant federal infrastructure money that's also available to systems, including a very large amount of federal money in the Clean Water revolving loan program that Invest administers, as well as the sanitary sewer program, revolving loan program. So CRW will be able to piggyback on some terrific grant programs through the state to help the residents of the city of Harrisburg, even if it doesn't come out of ARPA.
Yeah, and that's just being rolled out now, the
Yep.
REACH
Yeah.
money, and I'm sure he got the same email that I got. There's 500 programs.
It's
So
amazing.
and it covers all the gambit. So, and we have our grant writer taking a deep dive.
And on laterals, I think it was Ralph that mentioned that, or someone mentioned laterals, Doug. The grant programs for lead gooseneck replacement, for water laterals, for private services, really terrific. Where they'll pay the water utility to actually install new services, non-lead services right to the house, to try to get some of the lead and copper out of the system. Older communities like Harrisburg, really good stuff that the state's investing in. So other programs that are out there that I'm sure CRW is well aware of and will definitely tap into, get it tapped into.
And Madam Chairman, if I may add, I'm sure no matter what list anybody came up with, someone would have problems or
Sure.
wanted to go to other places because there's so much individualization. I didn't see anything that struck me as something that was, no, they just shouldn't be doing that. But I was just intrigued about getting some of the money that had come to the city to individuals and then back to the city again, because that just seemed like a win-win to me. And I was relieved, Ralph, that we saw that it was written in terms of residents, not those corporations that we thought were just stiffing us on, some of the trash collection rules. So thank you all for the work on it.
Don't rest on your laurels.
The,
Keep going.
And so just in summarizing, I think that there's a consensus that certainly the pots, the allocations, the areas of emphasis are supported and encouraged by the board. As the mayor has asked for a letter such as we did for the budget, if I could get a motion to allow Jeffrey to draft with the input of board members, a letter that we can send to her in advance of June 7th.
Thank you.
I like to make that motion.
And a second,
Second.
any other discussion? And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So everyone please be on call. Jeffrey will be in touch. And Jeffrey, now I ask you to give a brief summary on where we stand financially.
Thank you. So the board received a copy of the summary of bills paid as of today. You notice that it's our usual order of bills. We started the period with a bank balance of $134,985.42. And we finished the period with a bank balance of $129,013.16. And year-to-date, First National Bank has paid us $9.95 in interest. So thank you for that. I'd be happy to answer any questions on the bills of the authority.
Thank you, Jeffrey, for that very precise report. We now turn to other business, and Anna Marie, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
I think that you probably all got my email that said that today is my last meeting. I have accepted a position in Lancaster as underwriting counsel for Coast of Title Insurance, which is a subsidiary of Donegal Mutual. It's taking me out of private practice. I've been more or less in private practice 40 and enough years. And so this is going to be a dramatic change, but it's going to be something that fascinates me, and I think will keep me amused for the rest of my career, however long that may be. So I brought with me the managing partner of Johnson Duffy, Mike Cassidy, who is, if you're willing, going to sit in this chair and take over with me. Mike, the firm generally does both those, municipal work and government work. Mike is the lead of that. So I brought him today so he could see the work of the group, and I've given him a briefing and explained as much as I've been able to figure out, which is there's still big gaps, but nonetheless. So he was addressed. But in the meantime, before he speaks, it's been a tremendous opportunity to meet you all and work with you all. It's not been very long, but you know, it's been a very interesting year-ish or so for me, and I appreciate the opportunity, and Jeff knows how to get me if you need me for anything. Mike, introduce yourself.
So I haven't met everyone, but I'm Michael Cassidy, and as Anna Marie mentioned, I'm the managing shareholder of Johnson Duffy. And in that capacity, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you if you have any way of convincing her to stay. Please do so. We're sorry to see her go. But I have 24 going on 25 years of experience representing municipalities, municipal authorities, school districts, and government entities. So I'm very familiar with the challenges facing the city of Harrisburg, which are not unique, perhaps bigger in terms of scale, but the challenges are great. And I don't have experience working with the ICA, but Anna Marie has given me great insight in terms of the charge for the board, in terms of the function that you serve, and give me an understanding of the background and history leading up to this point. So I certainly welcome the opportunity to work with you. I think it's exciting to see what's happening in the city. I lived in the city for 12 years, so I'm quite familiar with many of the challenges in the history that have led everyone to this point. It's exciting to see folks coming together and working together towards a common goal. I love being part of it. Is there any questions that you might have?
Well, welcome. We're grateful that you're willing to step in. We're grateful that Anna Marie solved our problem for us.
Yes.
And she is a wonderful representative. She served us well and really was always ready for fun, sometimes tense conversations, but that always got us to the point that we needed to be. So thank you for your year of dedication. We really appreciate it.
Like I said, Jeffrey has my number.
Yes.
And you have.
Well, I was
my
just gonna
number.
say, I
Several
do
people
too.
have my cell phone number. Don't hesitate to call.
We know where you live.
Well, yes, several of you do know where I live.
And just for the record, the contract is actually written with Duffy. So it doesn't.
Right, it's not a contract with me, it's a contract with
So it does not require any new action by the board, but it was important for Anna Marie to be here and tell us about it and to introduce us to Mike. So Jeffrey, we now come to, sorry, is there any other business that I forgot to ask the board? Yes, sorry.
Yes. We were charged with taking a look at the soon to expire policy for public officials liability insurance. And we did get a quote yesterday, I guess it was, took a look through it. The policy is the same. premium is the same, and no material changes, and so we recommend renewal.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Hill, for your assistance. Turned out to be easier than we had feared, so.
Good, easy is good.
Is there any update on the development of the 5-year plan?
Yes.
Notice the big
Well, Tim and I and Brian are working on the schedules, and I am working on the narrative, and we will be on time.
Yay.
And we may even be a little early, so we'll see. But so we hope that. Hopefully, we can have a little more input than has existed in the past. The 5-year
Well,
plan.
and
So
that-
we will certainly accept input and guidance, and Jeffrey's already provided some guidance to me. And I did have a chance to talk to Dan Connolly briefly. So I think we're on schedule, so to speak. But have some work to do yet.
And that brings up a point. I think if there are any changes or adaptations that the board members would like to see in this report, just format changes or anything, if you would please forward them to Jeffrey, he can collate them, and then in his next meeting with Maria can share those.
Sure, pleasure.
And the next question is, you had mentioned that after in addition to the mid-year report that the city produces later on in the summer, that you're looking at doing other reporting. Between now and end of the year, just so to sort of set some expectations, what else, other than the submission of the 5-year plan, what other reports are you going to be creating between now and end of the year for us to keep an eye out for?
Well, we did a quarterly report, the first quarter report to city council, which I think we provided some similar, not exact data to you. It's just kind of giving them a status of the balance sheet activity, revenue and expense. No, I hadn't. Okay.
I don't think so.
I think I might have discussed it briefly when I was.
You know, we get Brian's, you
Yeah.
know, Act 47.
Right.
And you
but
get the
this is
report that's sent to Ms. Gracie,
Yes,
and you
we
get the
did that.
report from the controller.
Oh, yeah.
I guess when I reported on the budget, not on the first quarter, but suffice it to say, we were right on target in the first quarter for, being at the 25%. The only expenditure accounts that were over 25% in terms of expenditures were those that had requisitions outstanding for the rest of the year. Because as you know, we encumber anything over $3,500, right? And so we do those all at the beginning of the year. And then there were some encumbrances we rolled over, which aren't necessarily included directly in there, but are included on the balance sheet. So the good news is we were right on target for both revenues and expenditures. And Ms. Green, who's the vice president of the vice chair of the city council, she had asked that we do a quarterly report with her. So we met with her in my office ahead of time, and then we presented to city council. What was that, about 2 weeks ago? And we just gave them an update, and that's what we plan on. Well, then the mid-year report will be the mid-year report, but then we'll do a third quarter report and a year-end report. That's just going to be basically a status of where we are in terms of budget versus actual, and where we are in terms of cash. So it's not earth-shattering, but it's more information that city council has ever received in the past. They just got the mid-year report. Now we're kind of making sure they know where we stand throughout the year. There may be other reports they request, but at this point, that's what Ms. Green had requested from us.
Yeah, thanks for the update on that. And I know I've complimented you on this before, but I'll say it for the camera too. I really appreciate that you take the time to meet with Ms. Green and the finance chair, person to person, and not just dumping a report on them but going above and beyond the minimum. I think hopefully the fruits of all your extra efforts, blossom over the upcoming years.
Well, the communication is certainly helped. And I think she feels comfortable too, that when she's before her colleagues on city council, that she's getting the skinning and she's getting the exact information that she's requested.
Last question was, last month we had talked and I'd mentioned with when Brian McCutcheon was there as well regarding the neighborhood services fund, and we were asking for sort of an up-to-date report on what was delinquent and aging and amounts. And just wanted to follow up with that request and reiterate it so we could get our eyes back on it since I think it's been a while. I don't think we've heard any updates since the beginning of the year.
He said he would, at the meeting last time, he said he would work on getting us something, so I'm sure.
Okay.
And
You
I
just
noticed in the
follow up.
controller's report that the percentage collection went up significantly, like it was like 10% higher than last year. So whatever that means, like 30 to 33%, you know what I mean? Which seems significant. It would be nice to see sort of a year-over-year comparison, see what's going on in there.
When Brian presented to city council, he had mentioned that the Steelton Borough, their percentage of payment is just extraordinarily high. I mean, it's just off the charts, you know, cities don't see that, but for some reason, and the other two boroughs also. Now that helps, it helps too that the cities revenue has improved, but the other three colleagues that we picked up, the three boroughs, they're really helping to lead the charge and high percentage of payments on time. So that's good. So, but I'll have him give you more discrete information,
Thank you.
but that's what he reported to city council. That we definitely are ahead and we're thankful for that. We're hoping with this utility issue, we get that resolved, at least with the citizenry. We can maybe get people caught up and then more than comfortable with continuing to be on.
We wanted to point out on the subject, Anna Marie and I were just talking on the side, it's possible, although I don't know for sure, that still the bills go directly to the customers. Still, it might be associated with their water bills, which we can't do in the city. of Harrisburg. So they have to pay their trash bill or else they would get their water disconnected.
Yeah,
Which is the motivation we lost, unfortunately, when we separated Capital Region Water. And when it comes to Paxton and Pembroke, those trash bills are paid directly by the municipality, not by the individual customer. So they're always on time because the boroughs are paying on behalf of their citizens. So
But it's a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
no delinquency
Nonetheless.
there.
It's very important that collections rate is the key to that
Yes.
fund.
Yes, yeah, so that is a pleasant surprise. But we did see an uptick too, now that people were getting back to work, COVID's kind of calming down. People were feeling a little more comfortable with, their productivity. We've been able to see more improved payments on time, but we hope to see that improve. But yeah, I'll talk to Brian. He is absolutely buried right now. He has an audit that he's in the middle of. He just had, oh yeah, we have a brand new ERP software. We spent 8 hours yesterday just building the chart of accounts.
We trust you to
Yes,
prioritize
yeah,
it
so
for us
we'll
and
make sure and we'll get it to you,
whatever
but
the appropriate
I know
priority
he's
is.
building the chart of accounts from scratch into the new system. And so he's not sleeping much, but we'll get it to you. Because he has some colleagues, Alicia and Keisha, and so we'll see that. And I'm sorry, he probably was drinking with a fire hose as usual
Okay.
with Brian.
Trust you to give it the appropriate priority.
Yes,
whenever
I
it's needed.
definitely will. Thank you for that kind, gentle reminder.
Anything else? If not, Jeffrey, I'll turn it over
I
to you.
don't
for
know
public
if
comment.
Mr. Minda has any questions for us tonight? No. Okay, and our guests from the state, and we've already heard from our, so there is no general public that we've not heard from today. So we'll pass on public comments.
And
We have
I'll,
nothing by email.
all right, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Okay, good. All those in favor, get out of here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
For a very interactive meeting.